Morning, Cherries fans, and welcome to this latest show here on Cherry Picking. Now, before we start today, here's a little bit about our sponsors, Dental on the Banks. To find out what they can do for you, visit dentalonthebanks.co.uk. So today I have got my trusty counterpart. Nope, that's the wrong way. I forgot. I'm in the opposite direction. There we are, Mr. Matthew Harrison. How are you doing, Matthew?
Yeah, all good. Nice to be back.
Excellent. And we have got another special guest in Sam Harrison. How are you doing, Sam?
I'm good, thanks, mate. Thanks for inviting me.
Not a problem. Pleasure to have you on, mate. So, first things first. So we've got 3 points from the first two games. It's a pretty decent return considering where we went on Saturday against Man City. Let's be honest, we never really expected to get anything from that game, did we, guys?
No, not when you come up against a world-class side like City. I mean, from what I saw of the game, it looked like we did absorb the pressure quite well at times, but it's only a matter of time before someone like City break you down, and you know, as soon as the first goal goes in, you know, it ain't going to be long before a second one comes along. It's just I mean, you are playing one of the best sides in the world. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, definitely. And Sam, you was there, weren't you?
Yeah, like us first 15, 20 minutes before the goal, we were trying to hold on. But then, yeah, when you've got people like Foden and Kevin De Bruyne, they're on another level, and they took over in the end.
But Haaland didn't score, did he?
Exactly. I think he had like 10, 12 touches, didn't he, in the game?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's the one main thing we did keep out. But unfortunately, we didn't stop the others. But it was expected at the end of the day.
It just proves even when a side's got a striker like Haaland, I mean, a side like City won't rely on his goals. I think personally he's been brought in to try and make the difference in the Champions League.
Yeah.
For City, so I don't think they're really fussed about whether he scores against Bournemouth or not. I think it's more whether he ends up making the difference in the Champions League for City, to be honest.
The one big question I asked when I did the opposition preview show with David Mooney of the Blue Moon podcast was whether or not City would, be happy with letting the Premier League go to Liverpool, but if they win the Champions League. And he was a little bit on the fence with that, but I think that is Pep's plan. But I think he still wants the Premier League as well, doesn't he? He's got the squad, let's be fair, to do both.
Yeah, I mean, if you look back to when Man United did it, obviously they had the right depth of when they won the treble, they had the right depth to do it. And when you look at City squad, they've got two world-class players virtually in every position. So, I mean, there's no reason why City couldn't win both. might be a little bit pushed to maybe win the 3 trophies, maybe. But I can't see why they can't end up with at least the double of the Champions League and the Premier League.
And I think Haaland, he showed in that opening game against West Ham, what he can do. That goal when he ran through, it just looks so simple. It made it look easy, whereas it shouldn't do. If I tried it, I think it would be a different story. But he made it look so easy, and that's the difference with the Premier League. But with regards to the experience up at the Etihad, what was it like, Sam?
Yeah, it was very busy. Yeah, it was, to be fair, it was not the nicest of stadiums I've been to. But yeah, the experience was great. The fans for us were quite low, I would say. We weren't as loud as normal at times. But generally, yeah, it was a good day out. Good to experience Manchester. It's one of the games I wanted to go to this year. So yeah, now Liverpool next week away as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Liverpool, of course, well, let's be honest, they're going to probably be the challengers, although they've not got off to a perfect start. You never know that we might be able to do something new. We can dream, can't we?
There's no harm in dreaming, and obviously, all you can ever do is beat what's in front of you, and that's no matter whether it's a world class team or a Sunday league team. Do you know what I mean? Shocks can always be pulled off, so you never know. There's got to be a time when little old Bournemouth gets something at Anfield, so why can't it be next week? But let's deal with Arsenal first.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's carried away.
Yeah.
And we've been busy, haven't we, Matt? So you've done 2 opposition preview shows, 4 other channels. I've done 1, but I have got 1 coming out tomorrow. And I was quite shocked to be asked for this. But when you think of Arsenal and YouTube, you do think of Arsenal Fan TV. And it was a pleasure to have a chat with Turkish from Arsenal Fan TV, and of course we had James on the show as well. So, it was quite interesting. What do you think their reaction is going to be if we can actually beat them on Saturday? Do you think they're going to be fuming, or do you think, considering their start, they're going to be okay? It's going to happen at some point.
Go on then, Sam. I know you like a bit of Arsenal Fan TV every now and then.
Well, I think, to be fair, with the start and the way we play at home, I don't think they would be surprised if we picked up a point, especially early on. And when we get behind the team at home against the bigger clubs, we do seem to pull off the results. They'll obviously be annoyed because, as you well know, you watched Arsenal TV over the years, they get annoyed over everything at times. But yeah, I think they wouldn't be surprised if we picked up a point Saturday if we play right.
Yeah, and I think that would be it's one of the, when you play the top 6, I think any points from those are a bonus. You could probably even say it's a top 7 now with Newcastle as well, but the top 6.
He loves Newcastle, doesn't he?
I'll keep going on about Newcastle.
Honestly, this might as well be up Newcastle in all departments. Every week, Newcastle gets a mention. Jeez.
Do you know why Newcastle get a mention, Matt?
Hey?
Do you know why? There's a certain manager there.
You're trying to prove your friend Mr. Redknapp wrong. That's why.
Well, yeah, exactly. I haven't taken him up on his bet, but then again, let's be honest, you don't bet against Harry, do you? Let's be fair.
No.
Whose tips would you trust? Would you trust me on Up the Cherries in all departments, or Harry Redknapp, who knows his stuff, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think Harry would be getting my vote on that one.
Yeah.
No offense taken, to be fair, because I fully expected that. But yeah, because of certain Mr. Howe. But yeah, I think any points against the top six, are a bonus in this league. And I think, what did you make, Sam, of Marcos Senesi when he come on Saturday?
So obviously, yeah, we only saw him briefly, but from hearing on what he's been like at his previous club, I think there's very good prospect. I think maybe if he could have, I would have liked him to start on Saturday, but unfortunately he didn't. But yeah, I definitely think he's a hot prospect for us and could definitely help us stay up in the league this year.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think he'll start on Saturday against Arsenal?
You never know with Scott. I think there's a very good chance he will start Saturday, yeah. Because I definitely, yeah.
I think it's time.
Yeah, it's time to bring him
in. Yeah, I mean, it's one of them. I mean, in fairness to the back, the back three at the minute, obviously Lerma slotted in there and hasn't looked out of place. To be fair, Meps has done all right as well. So it will be interesting to see when he does bring him in, who he moves. I mean, really on paper, you've got to move Lerma back to his normal position, I think. So it would be interesting this weekend to see if that's what he does and what he does with the midfield then, because obviously he's going to have to. It's easy enough making the decision to bring Sensei in, but then who's he dropping to keep Lerma in the team? Because you've got to keep Lerma in the team. I mean, you know what I mean? There's no way he can come out the side. But so it's a little bit of a headache there, but a good headache for a manager to have, rather than not having a good solid centre back to put in amongst Meps and Kelly. So it will be interesting to see what he does Saturday.
Do you think that Zamora will be back? Because of course he missed the Man City game, and I think he's probably, if he plays on the left-hand side, he'll be coming up against Saka, and I think that will be quite an interesting duel. Saka, very, very good player, rate him. He was fantastic in the Euros, and I'm sure he'll be going to the World Cup. But likewise, I think Zamora, I think we're going to struggle to keep hold of him, because I can see him really taking the league by storm and being one of the standout players. When somebody says, who is the best Bournemouth player, or who would you want from Bournemouth, I can imagine a lot of people at the end of the season would probably be saying Zamora, most definitely.
Yeah, I mean, if I was the club now, I'd be definitely looking at trying to get him on a decent long-term contract. Because at the end of the day, again, if we keep him, great. But if someone comes in for him, there's potential to make quite a bit of money there. I believe he triggered a new contract last season, didn't he? Which I think is only a year. Am I right?
Yeah, I think you're right in that.
I think that was the same with Jordan Anthony, wasn't it?
It was, yes.
Wasn't it? So,
yeah.
I mean, if I was the club, I'd be definitely having their agents in and trying to get a sensible deal over the line to keep both of them. I mean, I know we haven't seen much of Anthony this season so far, but I mean, between him and Zamora last year, they tore up that side on the field for Bournemouth. So, both those two kiddies have got a massive future ahead of them, I think, in the game. And rather than us, losing them effectively, I know because of their age and all that, and their homegrown player and this, that, and the other. But it'd be better to just tie them down and let's hope we keep them for as long as we physically can.
And of course, Ben Pearson is somebody else I'd like to give a mention to, because I didn't see him starting against Aston Villa, and again, he did very, very well there, and also played against Man City. Do you think he might be, because he is a tougher player, Do you think that might be something that Scott Parker's thought? Because he didn't really play that much towards the end of the championship season, did he? But do you think that Scott Parker is utilising him to put the cat amongst the pigeons and give Premier League midfields something to think about?
What do you want to go first, Sam?
You can go first. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, obviously sticking him in against Villa. I mean, we were quite surprised, Sam, weren't we, when we saw his name on the team sheet, weren't we? But I think you're right. There might be a case of sticking him in there, to sort of like the cat amongst the pigeons. The one thing I love about Pearson is that, he is a ball winner. He's kind of one of those old-fashioned type players that loves to tackle. And sometimes when you're playing like the bigger, the big boys, or you want to grind a result out, that's the kind of player, you'd like to see in there. Someone, who's not scared to go in for a tackle. The only thing is the better the player you are, the better you are at, obviously dodging the ball. And, sometimes you might get caught late, it's a bit of a risk that you take. But, yeah, I mean, this with the Lerma, I mean, you've got Lerma, who will end up going back in the midfield. You've got Pearson, who's been playing lately. You've got Lewis Cook, who's just absolutely wonderful on the ball. You've got Philip Billing, who had a great season last year. So, when you've got, obviously you've got Rothwell to come back. Again, fantastic season last year with Blackburn. So, I mean, once they're all fit and he's got, his back three settled, it's going to be a bit of a headache for Parker. But I think he probably will use the right, he will judge a player for a particular game.
Yeah.
Maybe rather than, keeping maybe a standard midfield all season. It might be a case of where, you're playing a side where, you feel Pearson will fit in better than maybe a Rothwell. So Rothwell will take his place on the bench that game and Pearson will start. Maybe something like that might materialise throughout the season. But it would definitely be interesting. It's an interesting headache to have. I mean, what's your views on Pearson, Sam? Because I know that, you were quite surprised seeing him on that list last week.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Not last week, sorry, Villa, against Villa.
Well, yeah, with people like, as you say, Jefferson Lerma, Lewis Cook and that. And obviously Pearson not playing much at the end of the championship season. It was a big shock for us. But at the end of the day, I like Ben Pearson, as you say. He gets stuck in, and that's the type of player you need, especially in the Premier League, bring someone a bit different in to put a test against them.
Yeah.
There is a rumour going round as well this evening that Ben Brereton Díaz might be on Scott Parker's shopping list. And it was mentioned, earlier on in the summer as well. And, I do like Ben Brereton Díaz. The question is for me is where and what is he going to offer differently than Dominic Solanke and Kiefer Moore? I think Kiefer Moore, a bit more of a target man. Solanke likes to pull the ball back and is quite creative. And for a man that scored 30 goals last season, he's not a greedy striker. But Ben Brereton Díaz, what do you think, guys? If he was to come on board, what will he bring differently?
For me,
Go on, Sam, you're the striker. You go first.
Yeah, so for me, I'm thinking at the moment he's looking at him potentially because I've been hearing rumours about Solanke on the way out. I think personally myself, we'll only bring him in if Solanke was to go. I think he would be a replacement for Solanke. For myself, yeah, I think it would be a bit hard to say what he'd bring differently compared to Solanke and Kiefer Moore because I wouldn't start him over those two definitely for myself. But yeah, that's.
I mean, because there has been, I mean, I don't know if you've seen it, Craig, but we saw some earlier on in the week, didn't we, Sam? Some rumours about Dom going around. Apparently, well, I think it was last weekend, Sam, when wasn't he linked to Everton?
Yeah, so he was linked to Everton, and they said that Zamora was missing due to COVID. Is what I got told up there.
He was actually, well, I read before the game that he had a knock on in training on the Friday, and it's actually Zamora that had the COVID.
Yeah, COVID.
So, yeah, but I mean, it's the same. I mean, during the pre-season, I think was it Bristol City that Kelly missed with a knock, and then all of a sudden he's going to Newcastle. Everyone's saying he's going to Newcastle, and then in the rumour mill, going to Newcastle. He's definitely going to Newcastle, but he generally had a knock. So I think personally, Leicester's the other club that's been mentioned with Solanke, but I think personally, I think people would want to see what he does in the Premier League with Bournemouth before anyone put any big money up for him. So I can't personally see him leaving. I mean, if he goes on and bags 20, 25 goals this season, then there'll be a lot of turned heads. So, but to answer your question, what would Diaz bring? He's a Chilean international, isn't he? But
He is, yeah.
Born in Yorkshire or something daft like that.
Yeah.
Did he put the Diaz on the end of his name when he got his first Chile cap or something?
Yeah, something like that, wasn't it? And he's in every advert. He's advertising Pepsi in Chile, and
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's advertising Pepsi in Chile. There's even pictures
Yeah.
of that.
Oh,
Yeah,
we want to sign him just for the image rights, then, don't we? And the shirt
exactly.
yeah, no. What would he bring differently now? I mean, you look at Kiefer Moore. He's your modern day kind of target man. You look at Solanke. He's skillful. He's a good finisher. He's good at running with the ball. So those two, I always see those two as very different. I think this guy would kind of meet in the middle with them two. And maybe offer a little bit of what both can offer. I'd agree with Sam. I would always probably start with Kiefer or Solanke or them before. But then again, you got to see. I mean, if this guy does come on in, he's going to be fighting for his place like the other two. So, and only adding good competition can only be good all round for the club. So, yeah, if he comes in, like I say, I think he'll offer something that the two can offer, but maybe just in one person.
And there is the Pepsi advert. Look at that.
Look at the suit.
It's proper, he's proper outdone himself there, hasn't he?
Look at that.
Oh, and he's even putting it into a China cup.
They must be taking the mick out of the English with that, aren't they?
They are.
Yeah.
Drinking out of a cup and saucer. Jesus.
There we are.
Yeah, that's impressive. Yeah, we would have signed him just for the image rights, the shirt sales. Make a bomb.
That's why Scott Parker wants him.
What, to swap suits with him?
Yeah, exactly. The suit, he's probably looking at it and he thinks, look, well-dressed man, there we go. Got to get him in. So,
yeah, nice. Not my cup of tea, that suit, but
it's not a cup of tea that he's pouring in there.
Pepsi Max or Pepsi Zero, as they call it there. But it's amazing. I mean, his story as a player's amazing. To get spotted and to track your ancestry that you can play for Chile is a fantastic story, and it's one of those great stories in football that you always crop up every now and then. And it'd be interesting to see if he come in. But Scott Parker has said, as far as he's concerned, business isn't finished this transfer window, but he doesn't see anyone imminently coming in. But yeah, no, it's been an interesting one to see if that develops.
Going back on to Solanke, the question marks over that is, and I just can't see why he would want to go to Everton, because Everton in particular they don't look great. They've lost their first 2 games. They narrowly escaped relegation. I think their fans were really their 12th man in that fight and managed to help them get across the line. There was at one point you looked at their fixtures last season and thought they've had it this time round, but they seem to always do this, don't they, Everton?
Yeah, I mean they look set to have a long, hard season. I mean, the only thing really, I mean, I suppose apart from if you take away their form, that's attractive about the club is that the club does have a bit of history about it. But it's I mean, he's also a former Liverpool player as well, so would he want to sign for Everton? Yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, like I say, I've seen Leicester rumoured as well. That one out of the 2 would probably be the most appealing one for me if I was in his position. But yeah, hopefully that's all just transfer talk and rumours and agents starting to spread some rumours around just to keep someone like Solanke's name bashed about rather than there being any truth in it.
I guess as well, it's probably going to push his price up, but also I agree. He wasn't. He was behind Callum Wilson and Josh King in the Premier League the last time round. He did get a couple of runouts, but we didn't see enough of him. So he's the one player that's benefited from us going into the Championship, in fact, and then really excelled from there. And I think he will do it in the Premier League, but surely it's better to prove himself first and then potentially get his move away if that's what he wants to do.
Yeah. I think he'd be jumping a bit too quick, jumping off board too quick if he goes now. I think he does need to give it a season with Bournemouth, prove it, score 10 goals plus. And then, maybe next year if he wasn't happy and wanted to go to another club, then yeah. But yeah, it's probably not the best time for him to go now. He needs to prove himself a bit more in the Premier League.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But apparently, I've read this evening that they're going to be assessing him late on Saturday, by the sounds of it. So, late fitness test by the sounds of it for Solanke on Saturday. So it could be Kiefer leading the line again. But it was interesting to see Jamal Lowe in the squad on Saturday at City because he's kind of sort of been frozen out. I mean, Sam, what's your thoughts on Jamal Lowe? Do you think he's played in all the non-league divisions. He's played in League 2, League 1, Championship, and now he's getting his break in the Premier. I mean, do you think he's an out-and-out goal scorer in the Premier, or is he more of a wide player?
Yeah, for me, I don't think he'd be the out-and-out goal scorer in the Premier League. I think he will be more of a wing player. I definitely think he deserves to be in the squad a bit more. I was surprised to see him absent in the first game. But yeah, I think he could help us get a few goals during the season, definitely.
I think he's a decent squad player, and I think that's what he'll be. I think Kiefer offers something different, and I think that's what's key for him. And it'll be interesting to see if Brereton Díaz comes in, what the plan is with him, because I'm sure that he won't want to come to Bournemouth just to play the second fiddle. But then again, he's been linked to go to Everton. So if there is truth in that Solanke rumour, that could well be, it could all make sense. But I'm guessing we'll find out in a week or so's time, won't we?
Yeah. Yeah, it won't be long before we find that out. It's I'm just hoping it's all talks. I'd like to see Solanke be at Bournemouth for the rest of the season. Well, we obviously just signed a new long-term contract, hasn't he? So, I mean, he's one player I really hope things work out for, because the first time when he signed, obviously he signed in the January transfer window, never an easy transfer window to move in. Then he's got the strong characters of Callum Wilson and Josh King ahead of him, which were obviously for Bournemouth always first names on the team sheet. But they were obviously strong characters, had their places in the team. And, he found it hard. And I think a lot of strikers of his age and at his stage of his career would find it hard to break them two down to get into the side. So obviously having those 2 years in the Championship obviously advanced his development. So I would really love to see him take off. And I hope if he has got this knock, it's not going to keep him out for too long, because obviously you want to be playing games, and goals breed confidence for strikers. So, like I said during one of our pre-season shows, the sooner that he gets his first goal, the better, and hopefully many more will come. So that's what I hope with Solanke. I really do.
Well, on Sunday, we've got a show going out, and I'm going to announce it now. We have got former Cherries chairman Eddie Mitchell coming onto the show. And the one thing with Eddie Mitchell is there is people that really, appreciate what he did for the club. And I'm of that mindset. Matt, you're of that mindset as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things I'm sure that Eddie would probably admit that, maybe in terms of with the fans, he might have got a little bit wrong. But when you look at it, when he took the club on as part of a consortium, he's one of the first owners that have ever stabilised the club. Do you know what I mean? He's. I know there's a lot of Bournemouth fans that don't really appreciate what he did do, but I mean, obviously he brought Maxim to the club. If he'd never brought Maxim in, would we have been having these wonderful times in the Premier League that we had for those 5 seasons, and what we're privileged to be experiencing again? Because we've earned the right to be there. With Eddie, he's. I think he got off on the wrong foot a little bit with the fans, but I mean, I think it's all credit to the guy for what he did during his time here. It did really turn the club around. And then, like I say, we all know the story. He brought Maxim Denim on board, and things excelled from there. I mean, after all the years of, what we went through, I mean, like Sam, remember when he was a young kid, people going around the ground with buckets and cherry share, save the cherries, and, and then eventually going into administration, all those, back in 2008 or around that time, and going to games and then not wondering whether you're going to have a club to go to the week after, and someone like Eddie, stabilised the club and brought the investment in through Denim, and obviously things took off as they have now. So I don't think he gets all the credit that he probably deserves. But I'm looking forward to seeing the interview. Not seen it yet, but looking forward to seeing that, because I know he'll probably wear his heart on his sleeve and be very frank and honest.
And I think that's what and I think that's why maybe he had the run-ins with the fans, is because he was a fan himself. And,
Absolutely.
if what you see nowadays is you've got chairman of clubs. So say, for example, Man City's chairman, then they weren't Man City fans. They bought that club, they probably become City fans now. But the fact is that they bought that to make it more successful and then potentially sell it at a profit. Whereas Eddie Mitchell went into it as a fan at the worst possible time as well, when the club was on its backside, and made it a success. And that's what a lot of people and a lot of fans do forget about Eddie Mitchell. You know, he's a Marmite character. You know, I know that some people are going to say, oh, you know, but at the end of the day, Eddie Mitchell's got his right to have his say. And if anybody else, you know, takes umbrage to that, you know, I think that maybe they should come on and have their say and, you know, open up the debate. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, when Eddie Mitchell did take over, I mean, he took over from I think it was Adam Murray, or was Adam Murray involved in his consortium? I think Adam Murray might have been involved in his consortium, but the guys that actually took the club out of administration from Gerald Krasner that time was a consortium called Sport 6. And there was a guy called Paul Baker, I think, or Paul Barker.
Yeah.
He was the chairman, and he brought in a guy called Adrian. He'd been involved, I think, with Everton at some sort of commercial level, and he had a clean slate, and they couldn't turn the club into you know, just to stabilize itself and run itself. You know, I mean, run its own. You know, they were making losses and stuff like that. So that's when obviously the likes of, you know, Adam Murray and Eddie got involved, and you know, then you know, the club was stabilised. So, I mean, if Eddie never got involved when he did, would we have gone through the same old again? You know, the club with debts mounting up and this, that, and the other. You know, we will never know now, thankfully. But yeah, no, it's yeah, you are probably right with the Marmite persona. But yeah, no, like I say, when he was chairman of the club, it, you know, financially, business wise, I couldn't have really had any issues in terms of the financial state of the club. And like I say, he brought a lot of investment into the club. So you know, that's where the praise should lie, really.
Yeah, most definitely, most definitely. And it is a really good interview, so please do check that out. That's going to be 7 o'clock on Sunday evening, so hit that bell. The video will be available at some point during the day today, so you can click on that and set the reminder as well. With regards to the cup game that's coming up against Norwich, Norwich again. You know, it's always the way, isn't it? They beat us 6-0 last season. Absolute atrocious game. But what do you think Scott Parker's going to do for that? Because is it going to be a case of play the youngsters, or because you look at the team, actually look at the results in the Carabao Cup as it's called now, and there's a lot of championship sides that have exited the competition at the first round. So do you think it might be a case that will Scott Parker think, right, okay, this is an opportunity to win some silverware this season, or is it going to be a case of that let's play the youngsters, we're not really bothered about this, let's just focus on the Premier League?
I reckon myself that, yeah, I reckon he will go for some youngsters, and obviously some people that have been featuring on the bench first couple of games. I think his main aim this season will obviously be to try and keep us up in the Premier League. Obviously, it would be nice to have some silverware, but the main thing I think this year is just to get our step on the ground and stay up in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I echo that. I mean, you've also got players. I mean, this is one of these. Some fans will say, no, you should be going for the silverware. And of course, we'd all love to be going for the silverware. We'd all love a day out at Wembley and a cup final. But you've also got to consider the players that need some game time as well. Obviously, Neto will want to play a game for definite. He's going to want to show what he can do. You know, there's going to be players like we've just spoken about, like with Jamal Lowe. We haven't seen a lot of Dembele. So players that are kind of in and around the team will need the game time. It might be a case of, if Solanke is still not fit, and would you risk Solanke and Kiefer more? I probably personally wouldn't. I'd probably give someone like Christian Saidi a run out, or give Jamal, the central role. Just because you don't want to risk. I mean, look what happened to Kiefer against Boreham Wood. The most dire cup game for a long time that I think I've ever seen us playing, and he's come on, and first ball he's gone up the win. He's gone and broke his foot, was ankle, didn't he? And he was out for 10 weeks, and we can do without that in a cup game against Norwich. So yeah, it's definitely got to be. We definitely probably got to field some of the youngsters and those fringe players that are wanting a bit of game time to impress. So I think that's the route he will probably go down. I know it's a boring route. It's not the most exciting of routes, but you really have got to concentrate on staying in the league within your first season. I mean, there's a couple of seasons under Eddie where we kind of looked safe, and maybe then we should have probably gone on a cup run. There's a couple of seasons there where we should have put a bit more focus on the cup, but never obviously did. But definitely for this season, it's got to be just all focused on staying in the league.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, Todd Campwell might be lining up for Norwich. Of course, he was here last season. I was a little bit gutted with regards to Todd Campwell, because there was rumours, only a couple of years back, that Man United were looking at him, and all these big sides. And I just think his career's fallen off the edge of a cliff. But we've seen it before. Let's be fair. And it's quite sad to say this. Harry Arter is one where his career's just really dissolved in front of him. Could you see a way back into a Premier League side for Todd Campwell? Or do you think he's going to struggle?
You can see he was a talented player. I mean, when he was down there was one game where I thought I think he only maybe played the first half. I think he might have got substituted, but he looked like he was controlling a lot of and dictating a lot of what was happening through the midfield. And then after that, we kind of didn't really see much of him. I think
that was Reading, wasn't it? That was Reading at home.
Might well have been, yeah. Might well have been. I don't know if you can remember, Sam, but I remember we were there thinking, he's having a good game tonight. More game time, and he might develop into, the perfect loan signing for us. But and there was obviously rumours that Norwich should have had at the time offered him as a permanent transfer at the end of the season. I think there was a figure that was already agreed, and Bournemouth had the option to take it up, which obviously we didn't. I mean, I think maybe for him, it could be a case of, the yo-yo effect at Norwich might, 1 year he's playing top flight football, next year he's playing Championship. He's yo-yoed a bit with him as well, which might not have helped his career. Could he get back into a Premier League side? I mean, if he hits some form, I can't see why not. You can see he's a talented player, but he would need a decent run of games, and then obviously you need a club to put a lot of faith in him as well. I think he'll be at Norwich. They're not had the greatest of starts. I think they're the bottom of the Championship, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
are they bottom? I think someone said the other day they're bottom. And so if they're bottom there, Norwich have a thing where they say as long as they're in the top 26 clubs within the country, then they're happy. So they're not going to be very happy if they're lingering around that bottom of the Championship at the minute. So, is he playing regular there now? Is he?
I don't believe so. He's
not even getting in the side there now. No. Well, if that's the case, it's a shame.
No, Actually, tell a lie. Tell a lie. He has made 4 appearances.
He's done 4, but so
Yeah.
he looks like he's getting a good run of games, and hopefully he has a good season.
Yeah, and I do wish him the very best. Norwich at the moment are on 4 points. In fact, they did actually beat Huddersfield, which was on Tuesday night. So yeah, they beat Huddersfield, but their form isn't very good. Got beat by Cardiff away. Drew against Wigan. Got beat by Hull away. Beat Huddersfield at home. But then again, Huddersfield aren't particularly that great this season from the looks of things. So yeah, a very disappointing start for them, no doubt. But the cup is the cup, really. And, if I think we've got to focus on the Premier League, it'd be nice to have a little cup run, but I don't think there's any real monetary prize, or not that much monetary prize, for winning the Carabao Cup, really, is there?
What, financially?
Financially, yeah.
I don't think so from the actual competition itself, but I'd imagine when you think of merchandise and ticket sales at Wembley and that, I'm sure there's a bit of money to be made. But in comparison to like the FA Cup and winning something like the Champions League or even the Championship playoff final, it probably doesn't touch what kind of money you'd make from that, obviously. But yeah, it would be nice, though, wouldn't it? To have your first major trophy. But I think I'd be a little bit happy to wait a little longer for that and make sure we're stable in the Premier.
Yeah, most definitely. So, of course, the fantasy football is going on at the moment. Do you want to do the honours and talk through what's been going on, Matt?
Yeah, so change at the top this week. This week, Tim Smith has moved down to 5th place, so he still makes the top 5. But Paul Cox has taken the lead with his side, Who's the Daddy? And then some other special name mentions, 2 that were in the top 5 last week, Jay Hiscock and Josh Hill. And they're joined in the top 5 with Tim and James Hornby this week. So they're doing all right for the start of the Fantasy Football League. Down at the bottom, pleased to hear that Johnny Wigmore's moved off 32nd place. He's now 31st. So well done, Johnny. There's a guy called Sam Clinton now that's 32nd in the league. And you and Sam aren't doing much better. You two are holding, I think, 29th and 30th place between you. Mr. Rawlings is somewhere mid-table. And I'm still beating the up the Cherries team in 8th place at the minute. So
let's be
I'm not
fair,
doing too bad. Another interesting week to have. Make sure you do your transfers and everything in time.
That's it.
Having no points off anybody. Make sure you select your captains right, because I made a right boo-boo. I put Haaland as captain. Should have put Jesus. Would have made loads of points.
Yeah. Well, I've got to do something to move up the table, and it sounds like you have to as well, Sam.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I have not. I looked at it week 1, but I didn't look at it last week at all. I didn't make any changes, and that was where I went wrong. So you'll see me coming back up this week. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'm trying to avoid looking at the table, but I better do something, because otherwise I will be rock bottom. So 32nd. Yeah, an absolute embarrassment of the Up the Cherries in all departments. The boss
is on the bottom.
I'm just making it a bit more fun for you guys. That's my excuse.
It's a late season surge you're planning, is it?
Wow. Yeah, to be honest, I'm not very good at these things altogether. But,
Oh dear.
Of course, the score predictions will be back next week. So we'll get that moving forwards. But, do check out the Arsenal preview with James from AFTV. Really, really interesting what he said. Patrick Vieira has said, and here's one, Arsenal are title challengers.
Yes, I brought that up with the guys on the channels earlier on this week, and they both laughed. So there's a lot of what I've learned this week. It's quite fascinating. I started watching that All or Nothing documentary.
Hmm.
I don't know if you two have seen it, but
I've seen bits.
I've not
the
seen it.
Arsenal one. The Arsenal one, yeah, you've seen bits, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they are lovely lads. I must admit, the two lads I was with last night, both good lads, but they can't stand Arteta, can they, up there?
Mm.
I don't know if you got that vibe off of Arsenal fans TV, those guys, but these guys, they all had scrolling on the screens, hashtag Arteta out, hashtag Kroenke out. And I'll get that bit because no one normally likes their owners and all that, but they did not like Arteta at all. And of course, I've seen one episode. I thought I'd do a little bit of, for a bit of research purposes. So I watched the first episode and I thought, his training's looking good. I don't know what all the fuss is all about. He seems quite passionate. He's a former Arsenal player, this, that, and the other. And I said to him, I said, I've watched the first episode, it's pretty good. And they all just went, both of them went, have you not seen the episode when we play Liverpool? I was like, nope, not got that far yet. He goes, well, you wait till you get there. That's it. It just, it's just goes crazy. Then Arteta needs to go. I'll give him this season, but if we don't get top four in a trophy, I'm not interested and stuff like that. But so it's quite an eye opener actually this week, must admit.
But then again, I think they've got to be careful what they wish for, because if you look at what Arsenal were, going back, well, let's say 15 years ago, 20 years ago, you had Arsene Wenger at the helm, and a man that revolutionized the game that everybody has since replicated. And Vince Bartram said it himself, didn't he? He said that what he did was he changed the whole philosophy, and it worked. And it worked. And Arsenal fans had the unbeatables, or the invincibles that they call them, and shortly after that they wanted him out. They was like, well, Wenger's going, it's boring
He
football.
did say that they suffered 10 years after the Invincibles with 10 years plus, not really winning anything. But I'm pretty certain they've won the FA Cup a fair few times over the last 2 decades. So, I mean, it's not like they've been absolutely trophyless. I mean, Wenger, they asked me a question last night about Wenger and Eddie Howe. They said, do you reckon they were, like what we think about Wenger, he'd served his time, he'd done everything that he could have done for the club, he'll always be a club legend, but do you think he overstayed his welcome? And they asked me that question about Eddie Howe. How would you two have answered that?
Go on, Sam. You go first.
Personally, myself, yeah, with Eddie Howe, he did absolutely everything for the club. As you said, he is definitely a club legend. And I think, personally, myself, yeah, I think it got to the point in time where he could not do much more. And I think it was best that he parted ways. That's fine.
Yeah, because they actually worded it to me. Do you think you would have stayed in the Premier League if you'd have parted ways with Howe earlier? That was what they were actually saying. I mean, what do you think, Craig? Do you reckon?
No, I would have wanted him to stay on. I think he looked a very broken man against Everton. After we won 3-1, which was good performance that day. But he looked a broken man. Fraser had let him down. We'd had COVID, of course, VAR, Hawkeye, you name it. And I think it really got to him. And I think he needed a break. I don't know whether or not it was all his own decision. I'd hope so. But I don't believe it was. But I think he needed that break from football. But I just hope it was his decision. And I think if we had gone into the championship, let's spin this around. If we had gone into the championship with Eddie Howe still our manager, would we have gone straight back up at the first time of asking?
I would like to think yes, we would have done.
What do you think, Sam?
I think we would have definitely had a good chance with Eddie Howe, yeah.
But with the way I answered the question to the Arsenal guys this week, I thought, a little bit of the changing room was lost in the last season. And obviously the COVID didn't help. Not having the 12th man at Dean Court, because obviously, we can all make a difference in that stadium. And obviously, the little glitch with the Hawkeye and stuff like that. You're absolutely right. He's broken man, and like I said to the guys on the other channel, for me, Eddie Howe is God. It's as simple as that. And in terms of our club, he's our greatest ever manager. But it's like I explained to the guys, because they flipped it and said, do you think he's a better manager now? Now he's at Newcastle. And I would say he probably is. And like I explained to the Arsenal guys, the reason that would be is because, he's took that sort of 20-month period out of the game where he's managed to spend time with the family, recharge his batteries. But then he's gone all over Europe studying different coaches, like Diego Simone being one. He's gone and watched training sessions with him and watched how he does his game and other coaches. And he's done a lot of studying on his own, studying the game and trying to improve himself. So, I would, like I said to the Arsenal guys, he's definitely now, I reckon, a better coach and a better manager, and probably has learnt from that season that we did go down, which obviously destroyed him, which, like you said, Craig, you could tell after the Everton game. So it was just quite interesting how they were comparing, Wenger, and knew that Eddie's association with the club was long as well, and just wondered between the two, how it compared. Like I say, this week's been a real opener with those guys. It's been quite enjoyable talking football with them, to be fair.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I could say that Eddie did in, that last season with us was we got off to a very, very good start. We beat Southampton away, which was brilliant. Absolutely loved that. Yeah, to be honest, after that game, because we were right up the top, I started thinking, well, what can we do this season? One of the things that Eddie, you could say before, was defensively, we would always try and outscore teams. So although we would get some batterings and concede quite a few, we'd also score quite a few as well. And I think he got it spot on that second season in the Premier League with that approach. He changed to a little bit more of a defensive manner. And I don't know about you guys if you agree with this, but I think that lost the impetus, and maybe it was the wrong thing to do, because he still had those players, that had done so well for him. What do you think about that?
Matt, you go first, mate.
That's a good question, that. Yeah, I mean, you might have a good point there. I mean, it's like the Arsenal guys were saying last night. They brought up another bit about Eddie in terms of, could he manage a superstar? And I mean, I'm quite adamant with that last season. I think the Jordan Ibe situation didn't help. The Ryan Fraser situation didn't help. And for me, I think, you know, a bit like I've said, that I purely believe that for me the changing room was lost. And I don't know. I see what you're trying to say, but I think it's a difficult one. But I think personally, it was all down to the situations that was going on with a couple of players within the squad, and I think that kind of separated the squad a little bit, especially when like I was training with like the under-23s. I think eventually he was stuck with them, and I think certain members of the squad didn't agree with it, and kind of, you know, split the squad down the middle a little bit. From hearing from, you know, from a few fairly reliable sources. I mean, I don't know. I mean, how that's a good one. That is a good one. Sam, how would you answer that?
Well, yeah, I would go on the same lines as you, really. I think the main fall of us going down was where we lost the changing room. The players just weren't in the right mindset, and yeah, there was a split between the team, and they were just not. For example, just people like Just King, they were given 50% games, and it wasn't enough. And as you mentioned about Everton, if we played like that for the other games, we probably would have stayed up. But because he lost the changing room,
yeah, I mean, it just goes to, for me, watching that, because I mean, we watched that together, I think, Sam, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
I think you were living with me at the time, and by that point, there was nothing we could do apart from win and hope results went our way. And we did put in a superb performance that day, but it was always too little, too late.
Yeah.
But I think you can't rely on a season, whether you're going to win the title or whether you're going to get relegated. You can't rely on one game in a season to make a difference.
Yeah.
And obviously, if we could turn the clocks back and other results went differently that day, then, you know, we played as we did and got the result we did, we obviously would have stayed up. But it was just too little, too late. But I mean, like I said, I just thought it was interesting that, you know, the research that the guys had done, and, you know, was asking those kind of questions. I just thought it was quite an interesting one.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you again for joining us on Cherry Picking, and thank you, Sam, for joining us tonight as well. This morning, I should say. Of course, he's recorded last night. You know, I've given the game away now, haven't I? Yeah, bedtime. But yeah, pleasure to have you on, mate. And, you know, by all means, come on next week as well. You know, it could well be 4 of us, couldn't it?
That's it. Yeah, I'm definitely up for that. Yeah.
Yeah, we could all gang up on Mr. Rawlings.
Yes, the Dorset Vicar.
Dorset Vicar. Who's still poorly a little bit, bless him. So we send our love, Chris.
Yeah.
Yes. Get well soon, mate.
Yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed. And, you know, like I said, you know, health is more important. So, you know, hopefully he'll be back up to full fitness very soon.
With all that birthday cake and bouncing around on that carousel, he ain't been right since.
Yeah, that's what it is. But again, thank you everybody for joining us on this show. Please do remember to hit the like, the subscribe button, the bell button. Check out Arsenal Fan TV as well a little bit later on for me being interviewed by Turkish. Check our chat with James, and of course all our interviews and everything else that we have done, because it's been a busy week, and it's going to probably be quite busy next week because of course we have got Liverpool away, and you never know who's going to come on. So up the Cherries, make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.